welcome to Hello Chaos. Today we have Mike Vera, a board certified health and wellness coach and podcast host of Healthy and Awake podcast and founder of Avantia Health Optimization Company. And we're so excited for you to be here. Welcome to the chaos.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's
All
great to be
right.
here. I'm very comfortable in chaos, so this is going to be exciting.
I know, you're both a founder, but also dealing with mental health and health and wellness. I guarantee you deal with a lot of chaos. So start us out and just tell us about your entrepreneurial journey. What inspired you to start your company?
Well, I've always been interested in health. I think that goes back to me being a kid, and I grew up, my dad was a medical doctor. And so I was always surrounded by that. And I swear my dad could have his worst enemy knocking on the door at 3 in the morning, and he would help that person. And that really instilled a certain set of values in me and a fascination with health, maybe even an obsession with health.
Uh.
And so I explored many different avenues throughout my life to see how I can really work on that. I tried a clinical psych path. I was a personal trainer. And ultimately, I'm here where I am now as a board certified health coach, where I get to really use my psychology skills to really implement behavioral modification techniques to help people change their lifestyle to be more healthy and include more healthy habits.
Wow. So what's been the most rewarding aspect of your journey?
Really getting to help people with their health. And not only that, I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't admit that I'm pretty good at what I do. So I do like being good at what I do. It's very rewarding, but really the biggest reward is, having those eureka moments during a session where people have some sort of like, oh, I was holding myself back in X, Y, and Z way. And then after that, they just make radical changes very easily. They have momentum, and that's when things really start to shift. And to be able to experience that on a consistent basis is really powerful.
And who is your clientele? Who do you work with most?
I work with a lot of different types of people. So it depends. I have multiple strategies for marketing. I do work with maybe 50% are weight loss. So people who just want to change their eating and exercise and a few other things. I also have some people with more specific either health concerns or health pursuits, like some kind of athletic goal or something like that. So I have experience with all that. And yeah, I mean, we've achieved a lot of incredible things, and health coaching, one of the benefits is that you don't have to do it alone. You actually get to partner with somebody who has some idea of a trajectory for health, and they can guide you. And that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. So what do you think is the biggest misconception people have about being a founder? I mean, you're a founder yourself, also with, dealing with health and wellness yourself. And, but what's the biggest misconception people have, and how would you debunk it?
Maybe that it's easier. I don't know. I do people think that? Because I mean, I thought it would be maybe a little easier than it actually is.
Yeah. That's what I think we hear the most of, from different founders and entrepreneurs are like, oh, or we hear that from, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be a founder. I can set my own hour. I can do all this. It'll be great. So easy. And it's like, ugh, no, it's hard. It's really, really hard. And challenging, So what do you think has been your biggest, like that aha moment in your journey, whether it's been a breakthrough moment, a decision that kind of said that this is going to create significant impact on the way I do business? Any of those aha moments?
Well, I guess it depends in what exact context. So in terms of the actual coaching, as a health coach, throughout my training, listening is something that was really instilled in us. And I think a lot of us think, well, I can hear, so I listen. And that's not exactly the case. Listening really is a specific skill that takes working on. And that's what I have to do my job well. And it's taken specific training. It's taken practice in certain ways. It's taken education. And I really think a lot of us who want to accomplish certain things in the world should focus more on listening. Because
Yep.
and look, I've been guilty of this myself. I'm a young man. I have a lot to say. And so it's sometimes been a challenge to really pull myself back and just throwing out some talking points and just listening a little more. And I think all of us right now, especially in a world where things are so contentious and we all disagree with each other on something, and even that is enough to unfriend somebody on Facebook and all
I
these
know. The
chaotic things,
noise. Yeah.
right? It's chaos.
It is chaos. So, that's, I've always heard, you've got to work on your active listening skills, that it's not just about, oh, I'm listening, of
Mhm.
course I'm listening. It's like, well, did you hear me? Are you asking, those active listening tips of, repeating back,
Yeah.
showing that you're engaged. And I talked to another founder about this of like, one of the things that we've we've talked about, and it's something that I've been trying to work on too, is as a founder, as a business owner, a business leader, you really have to embrace kind of a radical empathy to be able to, as you're talking with somebody, really listening, asking questions to kind of understand, where are they, um and can you meet them where they are, and and knowing that everyone has different journeys, and they sit in, their own stresses. Um, we all absorb information differently. And I mean, is that kind of what, like those skill sets? Are there any other things that, tips around how do you become a better active listener?
Well, first of all, I want to just say that was so beautifully said,
Uh,
because there is a strong parallel between sales and health coaching.
mm,
It's, in my experience, the same thing. You listen to what they want, you listen to where they're trying to go, you figure out what the problems are, the needs are, and how you can bridge those gaps. But in terms of really honing in on improving listening skills, you touched on one, that's reflective listening.
mm,
Now, that feels a little weird at first because you're kind of repeating back what they say. Over
right,
time, it starts to feel more natural, and there's a lot of benefits because it gives people the chance to hear what they've said. And
right,
sometimes we're just letting thoughts pour out of our mouth. We don't really get to process it, and it also shows that you are listening.
right.
The one even before that that's often underemphasized is relinquishing your agenda.
Oh,
So that kind of becomes an obstacle to listening. If I'm really waiting for you to stop talking so I can say what I want to say, it's
yeah,
actually impossible to really listen. And reflective listening isn't going to happen for sure.
right, right, right,
So, really that a mentality shift has to occur there, because that desire is like, let me say what I want to say because that's what it's going to take to convince you to see my point of view. And that's
right,
actually not how we work as human beings.
right,
So it's like you need to be heard and understood first before a proper cooperative exchange can actually happen.
right.
And that's true in health coaching, that's true in business, sales,
You
you
have to,
name it.
yeah. I mean, I was coaching like an account person that works on my team, and I was like, "You're going into meetings," and I love how you said it's an agenda, even though it's not. People are like, "I don't have an agenda." It's like, yeah, but you're not walking in with the mindset of, "I'm here to just listen and learn." Um, and I said, I'm watching you in the meeting and I can see your brain churning of like, I have to make a point or I have to speak up. I said, so your brain is working overtime to figure out, well, I need to insert myself to show I know something or whatever. And you haven't heard a thing this person has said. And so when you do blurt out something, it's out of context. Um, and it's a lot like building a relationship, right? I mean, that's kind of like, do you want to be off-putting to the person that you're supposed to be, really engaging with? And I, just like I said, I think that's great of like, remove the agenda. It's not I'm trying to sell you on something. It's just, even in the franticness of, I want to show value for me being in the room. Um, you can be in the room by being engaging and asking really good questions that are more in that, hey, this is what I heard. Did I hear that correctly?
Right.
Or did I interpret this? Or, oh my God, that was fascinating of what you just said. Can I ask 3 follow-up questions because my brain's not, I want to make sure I understand the context. That shows, that you care, that you are trying to understand that person's world versus just being in the room,
Yeah.
right? Are there any other tips? Those are great. I love that around the active listening.
Well, to summarize that, it's really you kind of want to flip it. So most people, just in a general sense, are probably putting 80% of effort into like saying the best things in the best way. And
Mhm.
then 20% is listening. So I would challenge people to try to flip that
Ah,
and see what it feels like and might even be uncomfortable and difficult, but try to
yeah,
put like 80% into listening. And I'm not saying this in the context of like this will help you get what you want,
right.
but that is also a consequence that like it is more of a better influence tactic to do that, but it's also
Yeah.
the human thing to do.
Okay,
Um,
so now I'm curious, Mike. You got my brain churning here. So one of the challenges that I think we face when we try to flip that script and really try to ask those like questions. One of the I think critiques that I've been given, or like people on my team who we try to practice this active listening, people get really intimidated when you do ask direct questions of how do you it all depends on the person, right? So you kind of start reading the room of like, okay, this person likes questions, like, you know, because then they show, oh, you've got my brain. But I know that I faced that of like, let me ask some questions. Maybe, how do you get it to where those questions are welcome? Like, you know, I'm trying to engage, trying to see, make sure we're all on the same page, but not becoming off-putting or intimidating is another word that we've had used back to us of like, your questions are very intimidating to me.
sure.
Of so is do you hear that, or is that um, a thing?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
that is something we're trained in also, because as you can imagine, for a lot of people who want to work on health goals, that could be intimidating, right? I might have
Yeah.
somebody coming to me who needs to lose 200 pounds, and that is inherently an intimidating situation to be in. And they come to me imagining that I'm about to say, what are you doing? Like you're gonna do it, you're doing everything wrong. You need to change
Right.
everything. And like that's not going to be conducive to any sort of positive experience. They're not going to work with me. They're not going to even be motivated to work on their health if they feel like I'm
Right.
judging them in that negative way. Which brings us to maybe the first point there is non-judgment.
Hmm.
So, and that takes a very delicate approach in asking questions a certain way so that it comes through as non-judgmental. And
Right.
sometimes I'll even explicitly say, "Hey, no judgment here. Like
Right.
you're eating candy every night. That's fine. But what would it take to shift mentality, or what do you want to do about that? Are you ready to do
Right.
something about that?" So non-judgment is definitely a
I
big
need
one.
to I need to use that phrase then. Let me like, there's no judgment. I'm just trying to understand.
Right.
Like, I'm just trying to better understand so that we can uncover the problem so we can figure out the solutions, right?
Yeah.
Um so okay, so what do you think has been like as you've been growing your business? And I mean, I've seen that you've got a newsletter, you now podcast, you've got coaching. What was your kind of aha moments for your own business?
Well, I guess the best answer to that is probably what fundamentally drives me as a person. And that actually goes back to when I was 13 years old. I downloaded George Carlin on Napster,
Oh, I love
and
him.
he's the best. And so, for anyone who doesn't know, he's a stand up comedian. He's very outspoken. He's passed now, but
Mhm.
very controversial. Says a lot of things that people might consider to be
He was
awake.
the he was the Jon Stewart of the 70s and 80s and 90s.
Right.
He was kind of before, because that's what Jon Stewart is like. I just took a leap
Yeah.
and but kept that same mentality. So he comes from that approach, right? Or a
Yeah.
Robin Williams, throw stuff out, but in humor style, so that you'll
Yeah.
listen. Which my here's a fun thing. Mental health and behavior health. This is something that I loved, being a part of agencies and creativity. We always were taught like, when we're pitching ideas, that are the human brain, um, when we see humor, right? I mean, I think that's why a lot of comedians like George Carlin or Jon Stewart, or Robin Williams, Chris Rock, like Dave Chappelle, whoever is your, Bill Burr, talking about
Yeah. Yeah.
controversial topics. It's because we listen to it because our human brain, when we laugh, all of our, like the human brain, like all those defenses are left open. And so the message goes directly in and it sticks.
Yeah.
And so if you can do it in kind of that, and that, in marketing and creativity, that's what we're trying to do, is like let down the guard so that we can break through the noise and we can connect to that human brain. And whether it's in a, we gotta give them a jarring stat, like, ugh, or, hey, I'm just trying to get you to enjoy the benefits of this product or service. But, that's where you get that lightheartedness, tone and feel. But okay. So it's like, I love comedians, and
Yeah.
but George Carlin was one of my favorites, but it
Y-
was because he would use his humor to educate and
Yeah.
inform. Yeah.
Well, that's actually one of the two takeaways that I got from George Carlin was the power of humor. And for a
Mm.
while, I always wanted to be a stand-up comedian, and I
Ah.
still kind of do. But I've definitely used humor a lot, and it's been very beneficial in my business, even in just my general human social interactions, because
Right.
people like to be around and they like to work with, people that they can kind of have fun a little bit
Yeah.
with and relax and enjoy themselves. And when you're talking about, sometimes some serious things around health, it can be a little disarming to
Yeah.
to be able to laugh sometimes and crack jokes, which is not everyone can do that. So
No.
it is something that takes some skill and work. But even further, one thing that's unique to George Carlin is how awake he really was. And I mean, in his later comedy sets, he was saying, question everything you read, be skeptical, challenge
Right.
authority. And those are things as a kid, all I heard was, listen to authority and read what we tell you and do
That's
what
right.
we say.
Do what you're told.
Right. And so that stuck with me really in the center of my brain. And the older I got, the more I started to see authoritarian approaches and read this without questioning it, and censorship. And he was
Right.
a pioneer for freedom of speech.
Oh, absolutely.
So really influence is at the heart of all that, like propaganda and marketing, which is basically the same thing.
Right.
And so this might sound weird, but I do see health coaching as
Mm.
really a similar tool set to be able to tap into those influence strategies. So if people can influence us to buy products we don't need and feel certain ways about
That's right.
ourselves, it's like, why can't we deploy our own specific strategies to improve our health and feel good and, exercise and nourish our health and eat right
Right.
and those
Well,
sorts of
also
things?
make sure that you know how to filter things,
Yeah.
especially in the noise of today's kind of landscape. Like you said, marketing is our. I always call ourselves, like, I'm a marketer. I've been doing it for 30 years, but I feel like our industry is in crisis
Yeah.
because the the amount of inexperience and bad actors and scammers that have said, "Well, I got a computer. I'll go and get a Google certification." It's like, you don't. You are actually damaging companies or the influencer. It's all
Yeah.
about, it's just consumption, consumption, and consumption. And now with, social media and throwing out content, you can't tell. I mean, and all the algorithms of how they target, like my feed looks very different from my husband's feed and very different from my neighbor's feed. And it's because it's targeting us based on what they feel like, the context that they can get their message in. Um, and I've had to educate, it's like the fake news, whatever conversation. But even then, it's like the fake news isn't really necessarily, it's not national broadcast. It's these little, um, the bloggers that have set like these fake newsletters, and they have the header of Wall Street Journal, and it'll be like op-ed. And I've had to train, just my circle of friends to go through the click. Like, it's probably not the source that you think it is.
Yeah.
Like, they are probably not a legit reporter from Wall Street Journal or New York Times.
I
It's an
would.
op-ed, it's a paid for, and they are not on staff. Go look at their bios. If it's an
Yeah.
empty bio, it's fake, but they have figured out how to fake you, to feed it to you because it's what you want to hear. And so it's just propaganda. I was like, so you got to be smart on your devices and know what's real and what's not. But with behavior, like, you gotta be aware of that and have that filter up, or all the junk of the beauty and the fashion. I've got daughters. It is difficult.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
so difficult, because you know, they're like, "But that's what I see." I don't know if you find this funny, or not, but I called it's almost like a swear jar, but I called it a TikTok jar that I had for my daughters, and I was like, "Anytime you come home and go, 'Mom, I need to do this. I saw this on TikTok.' I made them put a quarter in it." Or, "Oh, Mom, I don't need to do that on TikTok." And
Yeah.
that's like the swear jar. I'm like, anything that you, I'm like, if you're learning it on TikTok, I don't even want to know about it. So to me, it's almost like a curse word,
Yeah.
um, because that's what they were. But it got them to, as a joke, to, what are you like? What in the world are you being influenced on? And I see like their feeds, and I'm just like, ugh, like, girls,
Yeah.
stop it.
Well, there's so many important things there. I almost don't even know which direction to go in, but I have a few points that immediately come to mind.
Yeah,
So one is, a lot of people might think, what is a health coach doing talking about propaganda? What does that have to do with health?
yeah,
And I think you really actually touched on that. And it's like, how can we make really healthy decisions if we aren't aware of the constant influence campaigns that are constantly targeting us?
that's right.
And that's true of propaganda. That's true of marketing, because both of those,
That's
I'm a
right.
marketer. I market my business. I'm
That's
not
right.
saying marketing's the devil.
We all are. Anybody that owns a business, we're out there, whether we're educating, we're informing, we're promoting, whatever it is. So it's critical. We're selling what we need to sell. I mean, it's critical in every single business.
Yeah.
But, you, as the decision maker, the buyer, the consumer, um, we got to make sure that we're making the right choices
Yeah.
of who to work with.
And I actually, going back to one thing you said earlier, not to push back on
No, yeah,
something you said,
yeah.
I agree. There is certainly like actual fake news out there, like basically trolls of people who
Oh,
create false information.
yes.
But
Yeah.
where I take it further is, I do believe that, even the major media
Mm,
organizations, which are only controlled by a handful of people,
yep.
could be considered fake news. And then I'll give you a very specific
Yeah.
example. So we obviously know that there are tons of pharmaceutical ads on TV,
Yep.
and most people aren't influenced by those ads. And there's actually been a whistleblower from the pharmaceutical industry who recently came out and said, those ads aren't for you and me.
They're for the doctors.
They are for the doctors.
Yeah.
Well, that's even like, the doctors are very targeted in a special way for propaganda through ghostwriting and the journals and those sorts of things. But it's even more so for the actual anchors and the people reporting news, because
Mm,
I'm Pfizer. I'm giving you millions of dollars to promote my ads. I don't want to upset Pfizer. I'm going to make sure that no
that's
bad
right.
press is coming out on
That's
Pfizer,
right.
and that they look great, so they keep giving us millions of dollars.
That's
And
right.
so that really, why is that important? Well, it distorts the playing field. It distorts our
That's
perception. There might be tons of bad news out there that could shape how I make decisions about certain products. And meanwhile, I'm essentially being lied to, lies by omission,
right.
by our TV.
Because, well, public relations is not just about getting you know, your message on air, have third party, but it's also about what not gets, removed. And I come from the media buying space too. It's like that happens all the time. It's not just like the broadcast. It happens in trade media, consumer, any media. You're right. If I'm buying enough, the editorial rules of church and state, if you throw enough money, you're working at a publisher level, those lines become very gray, and you do not want to upset your your best buys.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I used to be able to control exactly, like, even how many times the reporter's going to report on my clients, or you know, and this is what I need you to say about those clients. So it is, the advertiser and the brands do influence the editorial. Absolutely.
And it spills over into science too. It's not exclusive to news, how news can be
Mm,
manufactured, basically. But, when it comes to health, and that's one thing that makes this job difficult, is that science can be
uh,
manufactured. And, it's hard to know nowadays what's the truth. And,
yeah.
whether we're talking about business or science or health or anything else, I mean, the landscape that we're in nowadays, it's hard to know what's real, what's not, what's truthful, what's a lie, what's fake. It's
So
really
ask
tough.
questions. Ask questions.
Critically think.
Question.
Yep.
Critical think.
Healthy
Yep.
sense of skepticism, ask questions. And I want to emphasize healthy sense of skepticism, because you don't want to be
A
So
conspiracy theorist type of thing.
I like
You do?
conspiracy theories, but you don't want to be like so, you don't want to be boarding up your windows, hiding
Right.
from the sun because you're wearing an actual tinfoil hat. You don't want to go
Right.
actual paranoid maniac. But some conspiracy theories have come true. Like, right, there is reason to be suspicious, and even within health, there's been manipulation to make sugar out to seem to be the good guy. Like they demonized fat with Ansel Keys. They said fat's the bad guy and that you should eat more sugar, basically. I mean, that's an actual conspiracy within health. They
Yikes.
conspire to harm
Yikes.
people's health. So I do think that skepticism is healthy. It should be had,
Hmm.
but you don't want to be you don't want to go full Alex Jones, let's say.
Right. That's right. Those, what was it? The Jewish lasers, satellites with
Right.
the laser beams? No. So what do you think has been the biggest, like, oh shit, like, oh crap, I've hit this wall, like those big barriers in business? Have you had any in your journey?
I don't know if it's been one single moment. I think it's just been constant little oh shit moments
Yeah.
where I had different iterations of my business where I had my last name in the business name
Oh, okay.
and I got sued by another company who was using my last name. I can't even use my own name in my business. So that caused some headaches. And I guess if that led to one single oh shit moment, it's like, maybe try to be careful, do things right the first time and
Right. Well,
and sometimes
and that's how you got the Avantia, right?
right. Yeah. So that actually is the result of that misfortune. But I ended up rebranding after that.
Hmm.
And I did end up, consulting with people, exploring all the resources in my community. You look at the SBDC,
Right.
or did I say that right? SB,
Yep.
yeah, small business.
SBDC.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Score, all those free resources. Look at,
Yeah.
the community colleges in your area, see what resources they have to offer. Because there's a lot of good stuff out there.
That-
And, I totally understand the temptation. Like, I can do this on my own. I have YouTube. I can listen to, it's really, maybe you can, but it'll take you 10 times longer than the people who have help.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think those resources are so underutilized. People don't realize that there's an SBDC in every market in the country.
Yeah.
I think there's a SCORE office almost in every county in the country.
Yeah.
And those are free. And those are people there to help you navigate starting your business, scaling your business. Almost every community has incubators, accelerators,
Yeah.
startup classes, even like like how do you finance your business? Just like learning, I call it the business language, the language of business, which is really accounting.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of us come from the background of like, we're behavioral health and mental health, or we're, marketing and media. We're not accounting people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but we need to know the numbers and the language. But yeah,
Even if you
all,
hire someone down the road, like, so I'm gonna,
but you still need to
hire them.
know. You
Right. Yeah.
need to know it.
I need to know so I can tell them the right things to do. I
Right.
can't just coast and say like, that's somebody
That's
somebody
right.
else's job and for them to worry about. You can't have full control over your business if you don't know what's going on.
That's right. Because even if you had somebody, you have to review it and go,
Yeah.
"Was this right? Like, how do I read this?" Because yeah, it is. You fail on that. We've seen founders who have gotten burned, um, critically burned.
Well, at the same time, you still want to hire people smarter than you. Like,
Right.
so, I can't let my ego be afraid to hire someone that I might be intimidated by how smart they are in a certain subject. Like, I need to know enough to be able to get myself above water and
Right.
be competent in this area, and enough to hire someone who's even more competent than me so that I can not only direct them as to what to do, but they can do what they do best and guide me and
That's
improve
right.
my own decision making over time.
That's right. And we always find this has been my lessons learned, my aha moments of I operate at a certain frequency and an intensity.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there's skill sets and things that I need to round out the team, but I still need people to come up and have that same energy level and that frequency. And that's where we've been like, oh, because the clients feel it. People in our world, we have that level. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure that we bring everybody um, into that sphere. So, okay, so I've got a question for you. What do you think listeners would be most surprised to find out about you that's not on your LinkedIn? It's not in, that's just something interesting that is not known.
Well, I guess I don't really post too much personal about myself. I post my ideas, my thoughts, business updates, stuff like that. But I guess on a personal level, I listen to exclusively gangster rap music.
What?
I'm a Puerto Rican from Philly. That's what I grew up on.
Oh my
And
goodness. Yeah.
so that's what I listen to all the time. And I try to carry myself pretty ambiguous so people can't guess anything about me in particular. So a lot of people are surprised that that's my go-to.
Well, I love it. All right. That's a good one. Um, how do you deal with your own mental health and stress? I mean, here you're a coach, but what do you do for yourself to go, all right, I'm a founder. I'm having some pains. What are some tips and techniques that you've kind of taken on yourself personally?
This might sound weird, but if I could say it in one sentence, I run my health routine like I run my business routines.
Ah,
So one way to think of it, and this is true whether you run your own business or if you work for somebody else, it's like, look, these are obligations that need to get done if I
mm,
want to accomplish what I'm going to accomplish. So especially if somebody's working for somebody else, it's like, look,
yeah.
I give somebody else my time and I'm following their systems to do all these things for them and what they want to accomplish. So then the question is, why don't I put in systems in place to manage these priorities around health that are important to me? So if I'm going to create standard operating procedures for some emails that I really don't give a shit about,
Right.
why not put some standard operating procedures for maybe eating right and exercise? So I have,
Meditation and all that. Okay.
right. Yeah. So I have systems in place. Just like I have a to-do list for my business and I have Excel sheets for managing
Mm.
certain things. I have Excel sheets for my workouts. I have standard operating procedures for how the kitchen functions and to make sure that I can do my meal prep and it's clean when it needs to be.
Mm.
And that takes a lot of work to develop
Yeah.
systems. But if you're actually a business owner, first of all, you're already using systems. You just need to adapt them.
Right.
And second of all, you're so busy that if you don't implement systems, you're not going to take care of your health.
Mm. That's such a good point. I know, we've talked to so many founders. I don't think we've ever translated it in that way of like, we know systems are important, but put your mental health and your physical health, just make a system for it.
It's
Get it in
crazy.
your schedule.
People use systems for everything else except for health. There's just this disconnect there.
Yeah,
Like if you have a dentist appointment, you write it in your calendar. That calendar is a
that's right.
system for managing time. So like
That's right.
we prioritize, we do what we need to do for just about everything else. And then when it comes to health, it's just like, maybe I'll go to the gym tomorrow. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's good. But like, what's going to help keep that on track the same way you're as committed to that dentist appointment?
Mm.
What is it that holds that together?
That is a fantastic aha. Um, okay. If you had to hit rewind on anything and relive a moment, is there anything that you would want to for your business? Is there anything that you'd want to go, I'd like to do that over?
Honestly, I'm really happy with where I'm at. And maybe this is a lame answer that I'm sure many people probably give, but I think the mistakes that I've made have shaped my mentality
Mm.
now. It's made me more aware, in some ways ruthless in all the most ethical ways that I need to be.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't think I would change anything. There's been plenty of unpleasant experiences that I wish had never happened,
Yeah.
but I don't think I would change any of that.
Ah, see, that's so good. Optimism.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
All right. So if we met a year from now, what will we be celebrating?
We'll be celebrating, I think on a broad level, more awareness around health coaching because a lot of people, I really think health coaching is the answer to many of our health problems today. And our medical model, the conventional medical approach, is
Yeah.
fundamentally broken. Doctors, and I talk to doctors exclusively on my podcast. It's almost 90% doctors. So they tell me the same things. They're working in a broken system that the way it's set up, it's a sick care system. We wait till
Yeah.
you get sick, and then we give you pills that only make you worse. And people know this, and they're sick,
Right.
and they're fed up. And so that missing link is the lifestyle. And that's
Mm.
a challenge for a lot of people, because we live in an environment where it's very easy, comfortable, and convenient to do the unhealthiest things. And I
Yeah.
don't think that's an accident either. But I do think that having a support system
Mm.
and having accountability, having someone to guide you along the way, should be a fundamental part of our medical and health approach.
Mm.
So hopefully in a year, we'll be celebrating an evolution in our healthcare system with more health
Ah,
coaching.
I love that. I couldn't agree with you more. That is spot on. So, okay, what advice have you received from either another founder or just a leader that you have taken to heart and you've incorporated into your business?
Hmm. Well, I'm trying to think of things that I haven't already said, because everything that I have said has, I didn't learn it on my own. I learned from
Right.
somebody else. But I do think the most important things are prioritization, understanding your values.
Mm.
Maybe if I had to pick something I didn't say already, it'd probably be, really understand your purpose and why you're doing this and what your drive is. Because, I know so many people who are, in the middle of their life, suddenly changing their careers because they committed to something that didn't mean anything to them in the first place. And now they're
Right.
scrambling, and that can be a headache. I mean, maybe it's a blessing too, but it can definitely be a headache.
Right.
So I think really taking the time to do the reflecting, try to
Mm.
understand yourself a little bit, which is no easy task,
No. Yeah.
and understand, what drives you, where you're trying to go, and how you're going to get there. And, if you can do that on your own, that's great. But if you need help,
You, s-
seek out options.
that's right. I was like, there are people that are out there to help you,
Yeah.
like Mike.
Yeah.
Um, who's been your best cheerleader in your life?
Well, definitely my parents. I mean, my mom passed over a year ago, and I still
Mm.
feel like she's
Sorry.
cheering me on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheering me on all the time. I mean, she helped me with everything, and a lot of the ways that I think on a daily basis were instilled by her. And so whenever I reach a win, I can still feel her cheering me on. But my dad, who is still around, is definitely a big cheerleader for me as well. Um, he's just always there to help me and listen when I'm frustrated and encourage me. And nothing beats that.
No. And the fact that your parents are still around is a gift, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Absolutely. Or your dad is a
Right.
gift. Um, okay, so besides your podcast, which is It's Healthy and Awake, and you said you only like you've got doctors on and you guys are talking about really the healthcare model. And is there any other podcast or anything that you or another resource that you use that you'd like to share with others?
In terms of, I guess it depends, health, business, otherwise. So
Yeah.
in terms
Yeah.
of health, should I answer all three?
Yeah, if you want. Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of health, if you're looking for nitty-gritty science information, Dr. Rhonda Patrick is really good.
Mm.
So that is strictly from, like, we're going to talk about the studies,
Okay.
which is not at all like my show. My show is, I definitely lean more towards the entertainment side of
Okay.
things, because I don't want it to be boring. I want people to enjoy listening to some of these
Right.
things and get gold nuggets. But if you're into the nitty-gritty science, Dr. Rhonda Patrick. As far as business goes, I hired Clay Clark, who is a business coach, and I worked
Mm.
with him for a little bit. His show's really spot on. He knows his stuff better than anyone I've ever met. So business coach, business podcast rather. Thrive Time Show is the name of
The
that.
Thrive Time Show. All
Yep.
right. I'm gonna have to
And
check that out then. Okay.
entertainment shows, I'm all comedy. So the Shane Gillis podcast with Matt McCusker, Bad Friends with Bobby Lee and Andrew Santino. Usually I just want to laugh if
Yeah,
I'm listening to
yeah.
a
Well,
podcast.
it's like was it Smartless um and that Smartless is that with Rob Lowe
Yeah.
and then yeah. And Dax Shepard's. I love his
Yeah.
the Armchair Expert.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are some of mine. Love.
Nice.
And I'm film and TV nerd, so I love the industry, the entertainment.
What have you been watching lately?
Oh my goodness. So I went to go see Deadpool and Wolverine. If you have not seen it in the theaters, go see it. It's awesome.
Okay.
It's really, if you like that genre, it's well worth it. A lot of it. It was the most meta fourth wall breaking movie I think that
Interesting.
exists out there
Yeah.
because it's really Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman making fun of Marvel, Fox, Disney. Um, they, you know, they say like he will even say in the middle of the movie, Deadpool goes, "Well, is that right, Hugh?" Like, I mean, it's
Yeah.
very much breaking the fourth wall
Nice.
type of movie. But as far as like Netflix shows and or Amazon shows, I mean, I just finished The Boys season 4. I did
Right.
get through it. It sucked. I was like season 3. Usually season 3s are usually like the greatest season. That was like a flat
Yeah.
season, but literally I had to choke through to get through season 4. It was painful. And it's like I shouldn't have to work this hard to get through, but I, invested.
Yep.
But I tell you, one of the most enjoyable ones. And I love Guy Ritchie movies, but he has a Netflix series that's called The Gentleman,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very much in his style. It's like 6 episodes, 7 episodes. It's a short series, um, totally in his style. Theo James leads it. It was fantastic. I think I binged it all in like a weekend. Huh? And then and there was a movie that I think Matthew McConaughey was in it, which would kind of set off the series. And then, I love evil. I like anything like the supernatural kind of thriller horror,
Yeah.
so I am a supernatural nut.
Nice.
So that series. But Evil is another series.
Mm.
I'm just trying to think of like Ghosts on ABC. That's a fun kind of humorous. But yeah, I'm a TV junkie, so don't get me
Nice.
started. I'm like
Yeah.
totally. If it's been out, like I think I've seen more stuff than people are like, I haven't even heard of that. And I'm like, oh, I binge watched that
See, I
in a
rewatch.
night,
I don't
and then
watch
I've
like
done
new stuff.
rewatched.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think I've seen like Supernatural. It's 15 seasons,
Wow.
right? I have done a rewatch at least a dozen times. So it just like I can get through. It's just that's my couch. That's like it's my I gotta it just runs in the background, But
You've watched it a supernatural amount of times.
I
There's an
have
irony
watched
there.
it way too many times. But it's like Psych and New Girl and Monk and those kind of things. Those are my it's comfort TV, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gilmore Girls, it's comfort, and then like some of these newer series. But I find myself going, I don't want to think about something. I don't need to pay attention. Like let me just put on a little Psych episode and I'll watch that, and I
Yeah.
still laugh at it. It's like it's
Yeah.
still new. What are are you a junkie like that in any
Well,
way?
again, the same shows over and over. So The Office and Curb Your
Oh
Enthusiasm are the
yeah,
two most.
Parks and Rec.
Lately. A little bit. Yeah. But I just started rewatching Dexter. Have you ever watched that one?
It is, and they're coming out with
The new
is
one.
it a
That's
new?
why.
It's
Yeah.
a new
Two new
series.
series.
Yeah. They're gonna So that'll be fun when
Yeah.
they do that.
That's a great
The
show.
reboot, the revival.
Yeah.
Because that was a great series. Yeah. All right. My last question for you.
Okay.
If you had to sum up your entrepreneurial founder journey in just one word, what would that word be and why?
Well, that word would be awake, because I think you really need to be alert, self-aware. You need to understand not only what motivates you and awake to that, but you need to be awake about your environment and all the things that are constantly trying to nudge you in the wrong direction. There's a lot to be vigilant about, and I don't think you can be successful in business without being awake. So that's my word.
I love that. And again, we've asked this question of hundreds of founders and entrepreneurs. We have not gotten a repeat answer, and this is yet again a non-repeat answer. I love it.
Are you ready to boo the person who brings a repeat answer, or do you
I
have a plan
might.
there?
I'm like, I got to figure out what I'm gonna have to do. Like, no, you need to do another word.
Yeah.
Come up with another. Do a variant.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, this has been fantastic. I've enjoyed the conversation. Before we leave, tell us how do you want people to connect with you, find out more information about you?
Yeah, MikeVera.com is the best place. My business website for the Avantia Health Optimization coaching is AvantiaHealthOptimization.com, which is a lot. So MikeVera.com is probably the easiest place where you can find not only health coaching, but my podcast and social media and everything else as well. And that's V as in Victor, ERA, MikeVera.com.
Perfect. And thank you everyone for listening and or watching us. And we will see you again next week. This podcast episode will be available on your favorite podcast platform. So subscribe to Hello Chaos, give us a like, a comment, or a share, and help us build and grow a more connected entrepreneurial community. Hello Chaos is one of the many resources brought to you by OrangeWIP. That is OrangeWIP, WIP for work in progress. OrangeWIP is a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs in affiliate cities. Just an email to join our community. It is a one-stop content hub just for founders in an innovative digital zine experience. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast or support us, send us an email to hello@orangewhip.com. Y'all, thank you for tuning in to Hello Chaos. It is where aha meets oh shit.